Hey, how are you doing? And welcome to the continuation of our small review of a number of 1980s Scalextric cars. And today we're looking at the Scalextric car C.149. This is the Computer Vision Metro 6R4. Now the actual car, the Metro 6R4, had some rallying success back in 1985 before being largely relegated to rallycross due in large part to the changes made to the Group B rallying regulations at the time. Now you can't fail but notice, if you know anything about the Metro 6R4, that with this model we don't have the rear wing. It's a real shame because otherwise I think that the model itself is quite nice. I don't think it's a stunning model, but I do think it's quite nice. So if I hold it up to the camera slightly, you can see we've got decals on the roof, decals on the bonnet. We've got the front, that's a kind of replication of some of the examples of this Metro as they were running. Nice set of decals down the side here, including a series of decals on that rear wing. They've done an effort at the rear to do rear lights, and also you can see that they've got these alloy-like rear and front wheels. Inside the car itself, you've got a driver figure, there's a roll cage in there, and then there's a full interior, steering wheel, etc, etc. So all in all, it's quite nice. I don't particularly like the beige interior. I think I would probably look to change that to black. Underneath, we've got a standard guide, and we've got the new to this sort of era of Scalextric cars, Mabuchi motors. So this is the short can closed Mabuchi motor, unlike the Ferrari 312 that we looked at earlier, which had the open brushes access to the commutator. Okay, so we're going to take the top off and just have a look inside, see a bit more detail. Welcome back. So you can see we've got the body shell removed from the chassis of the car. One of the points I wanted to make, which I failed to do so earlier, was if we look carefully, we can see that the front wheels are just off the track. I mean, nearly resting on it, but just off the track. So again, unlike the Ferrari 312, where the wheels were way off the track, we could get the screwdriver right underneath them, full of air, and therefore it was very much a tripod design. With this design, Scalextric have looked to get the car itself actually sat on the track. Looking at the chassis, this is much more consistent with a modern day chassis in as far as the rear wheels that are located, or rather snapped into the chassis via the bushing bearing. So we've got two areas here where we can clip in that rear axle. So that's much more in tune with what we would see in a modern day car. The motor is a standard Mabuchi motor. It's the ones that actually got made in Hong Kong on the back, which was around about the time when Scalextric decided that they needed to find a cheaper motor manufacturer, and they tried a number of them, and they settled on this Mabuchi setup from Hong Kong for this period. The front axle is still very floppy, just as we've seen before, but it is actually clipped in, so I can't lift it out. I'd have to snap that out of the chassis itself in order to be able to get access to everything in there. Another point about the motor is that this part here, is actually an extender that we have slotted onto the back of the motor, because the motor pod itself is designed to take the longer motors that we were looking at in the Ferrari 312 T3 with the removable brushes. And in order to be able to put this motor in here, they've used this motor extender. So the motor pod itself is designed for a longer motor. Now, does that mean that some of these Metro chassis were used with the longer motors? I'm not really sure, but certainly I could swap in a longer motor should I wish to do so. Last thing I'll mention on this is that the body shell connects to the chassis via these lugs. They're at the front and the rear, which means that we have to bend the chassis to snap it out of the body. That's not good in my book. I think that screws are a much easier way of working with chassis rather than having to rely on bending bits of plastic in order to be able to get the clearance to remove it from the body shell. I mean, you risk not only breaking the chassis, but of course breaking the body itself as well. The body, now that comes in 4 parts actually, 3 main parts, and that is we have the window glass, which is clipped in via locating lugs on the sides here, clipped into the body shell, so that's held in. We obviously have the interior itself. This is very loose, it's completely removable, nothing is holding it into that chassis, and I think that we're going to see some of those effects later on when we see it running. And then last but not least, this white part, the bumpers, the white part of the car are actually attached to the blue part of the car. Again, these lugs, 2 of which hold in the window glass, and then 2 at the front here, which hold in hold the white chassis part to the blue chassis part. Before we do a track test, just want to weigh this. Again, there is a relevance here, and we'll see this during the track test. So if I just weigh the chassis on its own with nothing else, we are looking at 38.5 grams. If I then add on the interior and the exterior, we're up to 70 grams. So almost half the weight is in the body shell versus the chassis itself. So now we're going to give this a track test, so I will see you trackside. Hi, welcome back. Welcome to trackside. So now we're going to give the icon of British motor racing history some laps around our track. We're not aiming to do the fastest possible laps, as you remember. We're looking to see whether or not this is an enjoyable drive. Is it something I would like to spend a couple of hours with or half an hour with at the track, just driving around and having some fun? As a point of reference, our Ferrari 312T3 was 6.66 seconds at its fastest going around this track. So about 7 seconds, you know, really comfortable driving, no drama. It just went round. It was a very, very nice car to drive. So let's see how we get on with our Metro 6R4. And just as before, we have our timing system, and that will be calling out the laps as we're going around, which you'll be able to hopefully hear. All right, so let's give it a go. Alright, so she's noisy, straight away she's noisy. And tipping. Although I do have some brakes, I can see it tipping already.
0.00.
Yes, very difficult. Tipping.
9.00.
Horrible noise. Oof. Oh, nearly over them.
9.50.
9.5. I think that's probably around about it, you know, 9 seconds.
9.46.
Ooh, tipping. Yeah, this is hard to drive.
9.54.
Very difficult to get around, noisy. Not very good at all, I'm afraid.
9.42.
So what did we do there? We did a 9-second lap. I don't know how we did a 9-second lap. Most of them were in the 9.5. So it's clear that we need to make some modifications to this car. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to run it without the body shell on to see how we get on and see whether or not it's any easier to drive. And then the next thing, which is logical to me in my mind, is either to try and stop this tipping, which would be to support the front axle, or alternatively, I'm going to add some weight. So let's make those changes and see what we can do to our lap times, given that we had, I would say, an average lap there, 9.38 based on the timer, fastest lap of 9 seconds. So yeah, let's see what we can do to improve. Okay, welcome back. So we've added some weight. I've added just over 10 grams of weight into the car. Turns out there's not very many places to put weight, so I've used blue tack as the weight, as the main ballast rather, and squeezed that down into the gaps to get it as low as possible. And then I've used a 5 gram weight that's up by the front as well. Now, in addition to that, I've also had to stabilise the front axle. I've used a very simple method to do that, which I'll show you a bit later, depending on how well we get to run here. So let's do some more laps of the track, or at least let's do 5 more laps, see how well we get on. Straight off.
0.00.
So I've got to be really careful around these corners. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a tricky car now to drive.
8.83.
7. 8.71. So, I mean, we've not improved it very much. I mean, let me just say this outright, not an enjoyable car to drive. You saw it come off straight away. I mean, it was a struggle to keep it on the track. 8.54 was the fastest lap. I mean, I would say, yeah, we've got 8.75 in there, but that was with an off as well. So we've certainly reduced it. It was 9 as its fastest lap with about 9.3 as the average. But a lot more work had been needed in order to get this up to a position whereby I felt it was comfortable to drive. But for now, that's as far as we're going to take this particular car. Not a very good car to drive. I think it looks okay. Big failure on them not putting on that rear wing. I don't like the beige interior. Some people may like it, who knows. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. What we're going to do is just going to take a photograph of the inside of the car so you can see what I did. It's the kind of thing that anybody can do. A bit of blue tack, a bit of sticky tape and a bit of cardboard. So nothing major going on there, but an immediate effect on the lap times as you just saw. All right, thanks very much for watching. If you want to see some more of this sort of stuff, we've got another 4 cars from the 1980s to review. Come back, subscribe, and we will notify you when that next video drops. But for now, take care.